Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. Between the OTC, New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, there are over 22,000 companies traded publicly. I feel that small businesses are the backbone of America. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, Chairman Chris Headrick with Victory Clean Energy. Victory Clean Energy is a green hydrogen energy company dedicated to developing and implementing clean, sustainable, low-cost energy solutions. TrueGreen Energy, which is the patented trademark name of their hydrogen solution, positions them to be the low-cost leader. But I'll let Chris tell you more about that in just a minute. It's important to understand that I do not collect compensation for the interviews I do here. The purpose of this channel is to find companies that have identified big problems and have found solutions to those problems. There's a thing called impact investing. It's tied to environmental, social, and governance. By helping a small company become a large corporation, if you and I can become ambassadors of a product because the values of that company align with our own, think of all the jobs that will be created as that small company becomes a big company. Think about the community that that company is in. Typically, they thrive along with the company. This channel is to help companies that are relatively unknown become known so that they can build a following and they can have brand ambassadors that share their vision, share their mission, and are willing to do what they can to help have a positive impact on humanity. That's what this channel is all about. This is my invitation to you to become a positive impact person. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, you speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a follow-up to I think which is a phenomenal story. Just want to kind of get an update and see where they're at. Chris Headrick is here, the CEO. No, you're not the CEO. Chairman. Yep, had to catch myself there.
Yep.
Of Victory Clean Energy, ticker symbol VYEY. And Chris, I think you've been a little busy lately, huh?
Yeah, we've been putting hours in. It's been a busy since I met you out in Vegas back in May. We have had some monumental things as a company happen. The number one thing, something I've been working on for 15 years, is we actually entered into an agreement to buy the underlying technology for our hydrogen production from a gentleman that I've worked with for 15 years named Dr. Sam Weaver. And this technology is transformational. As I told you in our last interview, you know, the hook here is biomass. We turn biomass, woody biomass, into true green hydrogen, and True Green's our trademark name. And the idea is that we have a sustainability opportunity that's economic. And I told you early on that, you know, from my perspective, if it's not economically sustainable, it just doesn't matter what you're trying to do, because end of the day, economics drive all decisions, unless you're in the government. But economics should drive 100% of any business decision. If it's not economically viable, I don't know why you would do it. And that's been, I think, lost in this. You know, one of the other things that I think you keyed on our last call was renewable versus sustainable, or vice versa, is how I say it. We're sustainable and renewable. And the idea being, once again, if you're not economically sustainable, the rest of it doesn't matter. And it can be fully renewable, which we are. We're kind of focused on this concept of circularity, which means it's perpetually renewable, right? It's just a complete life cycle. It's rinse and repeat over and over. You grow biomass, you use it for whatever you're using it for. In our instance, it's energy. One of the key things that I always want to be sure that I put out, and I always forget it, is we don't use old growth forest. You'll never hear us participating in anything like that. We'll never go out and cut. I grew up in East Tennessee. I've got the Smoky Mountains literally in my backyard, and I'll never ever cut an old growth tree to make anything at all. But there are issues, and especially out in California where we're working right now, with wildfires. We just had the largest wildfire in the history of California, the Park Fire, and that is reality. And the idea from our the people that manage the national parks, and just in general the nonprofits who have made a living doing things to essentially keep us out of nature. You know, they don't think we should have input. You can't build a neighborhood or a city right up against a national forest and expect there not to be some kind of interaction between the two, because it's a fact that's going to happen. When you have a wildfire, anything in its way is gone. And the hands-off approach is what we've been doing for the last 130 years, and it doesn't work. You have to manage these resources, and that's kind of what we focused in on. So one of the few acts that I'm in favor of as far as any governmental involvement, anything that you're doing, is the CAL FIRE program, California Wildfire Program. And it is a program that I think makes good sense. And the only reason they ever initiated it was because of the wildfires. So they looked at it and said, well, what's the problem? Why is this not working? And, why are we having all these wildfires? Well, because we forced the forestry people to stay out of the forest and thinking that the forest would take care of itself. Well, it can if there's no humans anywhere. But if there's humans nearby, you have to have some interaction. So that's where we started. We've migrated. We're also looking at agricultural waste. It's a huge agricultural industry in California, literally breadbasket of the world. And we're working with a bunch of those guys and some things that I never, if you had told me these things, I would have never imagined. Pistachios, almonds, walnuts. I had no idea the scope and scale that stuff was produced on and the amount of waste that they generate. But it is a massive, massive opportunity. And, the opportunity is now they're not landfilling that stuff anymore. They're not allowing them to burn it. And that's another key thing that I want to be sure we all understand.
Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about a new app that I am very excited about. If you want to up your investing game with Wall Street wisdom, stay informed, save time, and gain an edge, then you're going to want to check out this app, STOCKPICK. You can discover pro tips from top investors and expert curated financial news, all in quick video short form clips. I've been using this app and I got to tell you, I love it. I am extremely impressed with the quality of the content. It keeps me informed, and I have to tell you, I've used all kinds of comparable services out there. This one is priced at $79 US. It is a steal of a deal. And right now, on top of that, you can get an additional 25% off. I'm telling you, folks, I think you're going to love this app. Go to the description of this video and find the link. Make sure you use my code to get that 25% off.
We don't burn anything. We are a pyrolysis process. And if you look that definition up, what is pyrolysis? It's actually essentially a thermochemical reaction in the absence of oxygen. If there is no oxygen, you cannot have combustion. That's just the reality of the situation. And I have a lot of trouble getting people to understand that. Not sure why, but it is just a reality. And, if they think if you're putting it in at any kind of a temperature that you're burning it, we don't burn anything and we never will. So that's what we're doing. That acquisition of that technology uh, was important for a couple of reasons. The primary reason was before this, I've never been able to tell any potential customer how we were doing what we were doing. What I was doing, I was dependent on a license that I had with the technology provider. I was the first outside investor in that technology back in 2009. And I was not able to tell the public who our technology was for fear of them going around us and going direct, or having one of my big competitors go in and just buy it up because of the economic value of the technology. So we had, you're having conversations with some of these big companies. I told you about some of the OEMs we're working with in the automotive space and the heavy trucking space, trains, planes, shipping. And I couldn't ever tell those guys where the technology originated from. And that was a big, big hurdle to try to get across. We'll just take our word for it. Well, one of the ways that we worked around that was we went to a third party engineering firm. We had to talk the largest, one of the largest renewable energy third party engineering firms in the world. It's kind of the gold standard for anybody that's doing renewable energy projects. We had to talk those guys into signing a non-disclosure agreement that we were going to then turn around and use their report to show to the world what we were doing. It took us almost 5 months to get that done. And you just think about what I just said, how stupid the premise is. But we couldn't allow them to disclose the underlying technology because we didn't control the damn technology. So that's how this thing all came about. The gentleman that owns the tech, Dr. Sam Weaver, I've been working with him, continuously since 2009, and I've approached several different times with um, opportunistic ways to get the technology bought. Opportunistic to me, not necessarily to him. And he told me no. He told me no. He told me no. And if you're not a real bright person, sometimes no just means till the next time, right? You'll tell me no on the next time. So in that situation, I didn't listen, which is a problem that I'm well aware of. But I knew that we had a market that really was real this time, and he frankly was never of the opinion that the hydrogen market was really an addressable business model. So his focus was on other uses of his technology, one of them which I'll highlight here in just a second. But the biggest advantage that we had with this technology, there's two. One is economics. We're the low cost producer in the space, in the green hydrogen space. But more importantly, and something that we talked about in depth on our last call, is that we generate our own electricity with this technology. And that gives us such a differentiator from a first mover in a market where our competitors come in, and we talked about all those guys. But when our competitors come in and look for a location, especially the electrolyzer guys, the first thing they have to determine is where they're getting their electricity from. It's not even a consideration for us. We're self-powered. So I'll go where the business is. And then, the last key component of this is we can compete with industrial gas today, hydrogen, that the big boys, Linde, Air Liquide, Shell, those guys that are producing hydrogen from natural gas. I'm competitive with them today. So if you have a need for true green hydrogen or green hydrogen to decarbonize your facility, whether it be a refinery, fertilizer production facility, ammonia production facility, methanol, we can supply you green hydrogen for the same cost or less than these guys are paying for gray hydrogen. And which just begs the question, why the hell would you buy it from anybody else if you've got somebody that can sell you the stuff that you need, which is the green part of the equation? And that's where the differentiation comes into play with us for the technology now that we control it. The other side of this, and I hope Dr. Weaver doesn't take any offense to this, but my greatest fear was if we were not able to precipitate the acquisition of the technology, that I go in and we start making announcements of these projects that we're going to do. It's kind of self-defeating, right? Because I'm building the valuation of his technology against my own best interest, right? As a company. That makes no damn sense. So we've got a gentleman named David VYEY, and who I've worked with for the last 10 or 12 years, 15 years maybe now. Time's getting away from me a little bit. But David's been helping me with this technology and trying to help me figure out how to capitalize this asset. And he came to work with us a year and a half ago. And structurally, he's as good as I've ever seen in the industry. He's got a remarkable background, and he understood the value when I showed it to him back in 2012. He said, "This is just remarkable," but unfortunately, nobody saw the value in the hydrogen. I mean, I don't know why that was my fixation, but he said, "Well, what the hell are we going to do with it when we buy it?" And I said, "We're going to produce hydrogen." And he said, "Okay, why would we produce hydrogen?" Because at the time we were in the oil and gas business together. And he said, "This kind of flies in the face of what we're doing at our company at the time." I was doing M&A for his company. He was the president of an oil and gas company that I worked for. And he went through business model with me, and he didn't get it at that time. He didn't see where the correlation came into this space. But he did come away with one important takeaway, is that the economics of this technology were so different than anything else in the space that he stayed engaged with me. And he said, I'm not sure I fully understand where you're trying to get to. He said, but I do recognize that there's some economics here that are contrary to the market. And he said, I do think we need to really dig in on this. Well, while this was happening, when I brought him in 2015 to help Dr. Weaver try to capitalize his newest idea, which was if you took our biochar, one of the co-products of when you run the biomass through the system, two things happen. Number one, you get a hydrogen-rich syngas that we take up a pipe and take out and either purify or use it to generate electricity as a syngas. The other thing that happens is we drop out the biochar, and biochar is one of our co-products. Biochar by itself is a unique and valuable product, but Dr. Weaver had this idea that you could upgrade that biochar. The biochar in its form coming from us is a low-grade graphene product. And if you're in the industrial space, you would have an idea of what graphene means and why it's applicable. But what Dr. Weaver told me was, I can take your biochar, our biochar, because it was his technology that was producing it, and I can upgrade that to the best graphene on the market. And I had a lot of respect for Dr. Weaver, so I listened. But I've heard the best in market so many times in my life. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd just be out spending my money.
Yeah.
So I brought in some people. I brought a group in from Manchester University in England, which just so happens
So
to
that's
be
where they discovered graphene, correct?
exactly a really good group of people there. And I'll tie this in relevance here in just a second. But what I brought in a couple other folks, one from Cal Berkeley. David brought us a professor of green chemistry from Yale. And we all had these guys do an analysis on this graphene, and including another group that came in from MIT. And all of these guys together said the exact same thing, that this was the highest grade graphene that they had ever tested. And when we were talking with the professor from Yale, we were on the video call, and he asked a very important question. He said, how much of this graphene have you produced and how much can you produce? And Dr. Weaver said, I got about 8 tons in storage, and we can produce about 6 kilograms every 8 hours. And the guy said, do what? And he said, what do you mean? He said, you're producing it by the kilogram. He said, well, technically that's with one of our modular units, which is the units that I use to make my hydrogen and electricity. It's the exact same unit. He said, but I can, put those in line in sequence and go from, 5 to 8 to, whatever the number is, whatever the requirement is, I can produce it. And the stuff today is selling, and here's where the tie-in comes, for $500,000 a ton. $500,000 a ton. So when we wrote our contract to purchase this technology, I took a flyer and I said, I told Dr. Weaver, I said, don't be shocked if you get this contract for the asset purchase. I said, I'm asking you to give us half of the revenues from the graphene. If we provide the buyer and we provide the biochar, we want you to split revenues with us. And he didn't even hesitate. He said, of course. He said, we would do that. He said, that's not even a consideration. Of course. He said, put it in there. That's a, it's a great idea. So it kind of gave us another, I call it an insurance policy. My fear is, and my position on solar and wind. I'm not a fan of either. I don't think there's a successful operation on the planet that you can point to that makes money. But if you had an affordable battery that didn't degrade, charges 5 times as fast as a traditional lithium ion battery, and holds 10 times the charge and never degrades, it stays. What if you put a 5 megawatt battery pack in, you've got 5 megawatts of power, and we're doing it for a whole lot less money per kilowatt hour of storage or megawatt hour of storage than anything else in the market. And it's because the graphene is the core component. And there's we could do a whole nother show, and I'm happy to do that.
This, but yeah, we
Yeah,
can have there's a whole
yeah, but that is so relevant into this contract, because when I wrote the contract, I said, I don't want to get ourselves in a situation where I'm giving you the biochar to turn into graphene to put me out of business. Well, reality of the situation is, if you really step back and look at it, the industrial gas market for hydrogen today, it's about little over 105, 106 million tons worldwide of hydrogen that's produced every day from natural gas. There's a small percentage of that. My number is less than 5% of that worldwide volume is in green hydrogen. With the idea being that green hydrogen will someday supplant the hydrogen that's made from natural gas. That's kind of the holy grail of where we're all trying to get to. That's the benchmark. Our competitors in the space that use electrolysis to make their hydrogen. Kind of the cheapest that I've seen, and I've not been able to get any real numbers because even though they're publicly traded companies, they don't ever publish the real nuts and bolts of what their cost per kilogram might be. All I've got is supposition from people that they've worked with, people that they've tried to sell their hydrogen to, and I know what they're selling it for. So you can kind of extrapolate what it costs. I know how much energy it takes to liquefy it. I know how much it takes to compress it. All those are known numbers with our technology. So I can extrapolate that and kind of see where they're at. Well, the market in California for a kilogram of hydrogen at one of these refueling stations for the personal vehicles for cars is $36 a ton or $36 a kilogram. That's insanity. That will never ever work, right? What you've got to do if you're going to displace a market, you have to be cost comparative to what you're trying to displace. I mean, that's economics 101. Everybody should understand that. When they tell me that it's $36 a kilogram, I thought they were joking. So we get one of our guys lives out in California. One of our salespeople lives in San Francisco. He went to the stations and made pictures of the pump, and he said, "I'm not kidding. This is the price." Well, then we start doing research. We get on the web and we find out that from the California Department of Energy, our Energy Commission, that not only are these prices real, none of these damn stations have any hydrogen. And I'm like, well, how? If you're getting $36 a kilogram, you would think that they would be running pipelines to get it to the stations to get that kind of price. Not the case at all. It was very spotty, very hit or miss. And if you're trying to develop a market, last thing you want to have happen is a customer brings their hydrogen powered vehicle to your fueling location and you not have any damn hydrogen. What happens next? They sue Toyota or Hyundai or Honda, whoever the supplier of the fuel cell vehicle is. You sold me this damn car and you told me that I was going to have access to hydrogen. I don't have access to hydrogen. So there's actually a lawsuit in the state of California against the Toyota for their Mirai because they represented that there was going to be this network of fueling stations. So that's where we see kind of the low-hanging fruit is with this technology now. I've absolutely got control of the cost of a kilogram of hydrogen. I don't have to worry about somebody coming in and undercutting us and buying the technology and putting us out of business, which would have made no sense for us not to move on the opportunity when it presented itself. This was very opportunistic in nature. We didn't plan on this happening that soon. We did give a couple of our partners access to the technology, but under color of NDAs and non-competes. But really just depending on the quality of the partners that we had at the table, not to try to screw us and go around us. And it doesn't matter what you put on paper. It's the person signing the paper that makes the deal real or not. And for whatever reason in my life, I've been fairly blessed with the ability to kind of pick good people that I want to work with and just run like hell from people that I don't want to work with. And that's what I've done my whole life. And the slide that you've got up on the screen right now, that's the issue. There's three different hydrogens. There's the gray hydrogen, the blue hydrogen, and the green hydrogen. We're TrueGreen. That's what we do. Green hydrogen is by definition made from a renewable energy source. Unfortunately, out there in the space today, our competitors are pushing back on DOE because they're trying to get, they don't want to have to play by the same rules. They don't want to call their green hydrogen blue hydrogen because they're having to clean up the hydrogen, or they don't want to have to make the determination where the power is delivered from. Well, there's still a large portion of our power here in the United States that's generated from natural gas, or believe it or not, even coal. And just to say with a straight face, my hydrogen's green, but we don't know where we're getting the electricity from. On the face of that, that's ridiculous. That whole premise is just stupid. And if when we have these conversations with these guys, and we have it with DOE or whoever, our point was you have to hold their feet to the fire. You can't call it green if you don't know where the electricity is coming from. So the thank God DOE came back and IRS came back and said, EPA said that you do hourly have to point to where your power is coming from if you want to participate in the production tax credits. You have to show that it's green energy. Well, that put the screws to these guys because they don't know. There's no way for them, to make that determination. So they really end up with blue hydrogen, which is essentially hydrogen that's generated from a fossil source, and they do some kind of carbon capture and sequestration. I've been in the oil and gas and coal business long enough to know that carbon capture and sequestration is a damn pipe dream. The only atom that would be more difficult to control than carbon is hydrogen. And to try to compress hydrogen into a liquid form and make it function as an economic energy source there's no reality in that argument. And it's the same thing for carbon capture and sequestration. I don't care if Bill Gates or Jiminy Cricket, I don't care who decides that it's going to be a viable business model. The premise is ridiculous. And anybody that's telling you the difference, not being honest with you. This whole idea of blue hydrogen is just a different shade of gray, because if you're using fossil, and in Australia, they're trying to quantify hydrogen made from brown coal, subbituminous coal. They're trying to get that they're determined to be green hydrogen. And I'm a coal guy. I mean, I love the notion of that, but just on the face of it, the whole premise is just stupid. It makes no sense. So we now control the technology that allows us to turn a completely sustainable and renewable source of energy, which can be woody biomass, it can be ag waste, it can be an energy crop that you grow. One of the things that we're looking at right now is hemp. Hemp is a remarkable source of energy and just a source of things that we knew about this 150 years ago, and we let the idiots legislate hemp out of our economy.
Yep.
And it's mind-numbing that we've allowed these people to do this stuff to us. But hemp is a remarkable energy crop, and that's for my use. That's not for all the other things that hemp can be used for.
Yep.
So we're pretty enamored with that. We're looking at a couple of other ideas, but near term, ag waste and wood waste from managed forestry resources. I don't have to look.
You have another partnership there that fits extremely well.
Yeah, and that's where the beauty of the tribal component is. You have somebody, I won't mention their name, but some of these big environmental organizations who, fight any kind of advancement in anything in energy or industry as bad. And, the whole notion of that's ridiculous to me. But to go to tell a Native American, a tribal member, that they don't know what's best for the forest is the dumbest damn thing I have ever heard. And when they did this in the state of California in Sacramento, when this idiot got up and made this presentation, and when the president of Redco got up and said, I don't need you guys to tell me anything about forestry management. We've been doing it for 3,000 to 5,000 years here. There's nothing you can tell us about forestry management. And the guy did not say another word. He didn't get up and respond. So it's a dream, right? That match. So we're very lucky to have those guys as partners. We have moved the technology forward now. Our next step is to build a demonstration facility. We're still working on permitting out in California, but as you know, that process right there is new. So there are some issues that we have to go through to get it permitted. In the meantime, we're working on a location in Florida, Tampa, to build a smaller facility, just a demonstration facility. And the reason for this is that the DOE requires that any application, and this is still supposition on our part, but it's what they've kind of given us in our ongoing permitting with them through the tribal loan program, is that it has to be operational for 2,000 hours in whatever the commercial configuration is you're going to use. So that means my technology that Victory owns, which is the pyrolysis technology, the gen sets, which we made an announcement several months back about Hyliion. We're going to be using their gen sets, their linear generators, which we discussed that last time. People can look back if they want to see that conversation, but that's transformational technology. It's going to be huge for us. We're very happy with that partnership. And then the pressure swing absorption system that we use to purify our syngas. So just so you've got it in your head, you bring biomass in, you chip it to a very specific size. You run that through essentially a conveyor system, auger conveyors, to move it into a vacuum chamber. That vacuum chamber drops that biomass. You have to get all the oxygen out of the process. You drop it into a tube that operates at 1100 C. And what happens there is a thermochemical conversion of the biomass into the constituent gas and the biochar. Then as that comes out, we take that gas first, the constituent gas, we circulate part of it back into our system to generate the electricity. We take part of it and run it through this pressure swing absorption system to purify it to 3 nines or 4 nines, whatever the industry spec is, and everybody's got a little different idea of what that looks like. But it's very easily done. It's 120-year-old technology that you can't patent anymore. It's just accepted art. So we generate our own our hydrogen using this, but what we have to do is we have to put, even though there are people using our technology today to generate hydrogen-rich syngas, it's not being used to generate pure hydrogen. So it's not being used to generate its own electricity. It's not being used in its final form through the PSA to run a fuel cell or to be used in an industrial application. So we do have to qualify that. And the easiest way to do that is just build a small demonstration facility. We're thinking it's going to cost us about $20 million to do it. And here's the real differentiator. The question is, well, why don't you just do that in California? Well, we're 15 months into permitting in California. And I swear to God, I think we're further away from permitting today than we were when we started. Some of it's our fault, but they just have a lot of bureaucracy that you have to work through in the state. Some of it's not bad, and you have to give the state of California its due. There would not be a Victory Energy or any other green hydrogen business if there had not been the state of California, because they're the ones that have put these mandates in place. And they are the absolute standard. And this pisses everybody off all over the world when I say this. Every other country in the world is basing their business models for hydrogen on what California initiated. That's a fact. It's not subject to discussion. It's just the reality of the situation. in California, whether you like them or not, are absolutely the genesis for renewables. That's just the reality. And I don't agree with all of their policies, but I do say with a degree of certainty that I would not be doing what I'm doing today if it had not been mandates that the state of California put in place. Now, that said, we built this demonstration facility in Tampa. Uh, it's our understanding from the permitting bodies and the engineering firm we're working with down there that from start to finish, our permitting is about 90 days. And I laugh about that because that's so damn ridiculous compared to what we're going through, not just in California, but we're looking in New York and New Jersey and Washington and Illinois and Indiana. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that there's not 90 days permitting happening in any of those other states, period. Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and there's a common thread there. I'll leave it to your viewers to figure it out. These guys are pro-business, and they want anything that makes economic sense deployed. And if you just so happen to be beneficial to the environment, that's a win-win for everybody, right? I mean,
Well, it could be.
I can't be the only person that understands that. You know, if you can deploy it quicker.
I'm pretty sure I have a good grasp of this, Chris.
Right. I think after our earlier conversation, you do. But that's the reality of the situation, right? The quicker we can get this deployed, the better off we are everywhere. We don't look at this. I'll be honest with you. In the near term, we're just United States, Canada. In the next 4 or 5 years, there's just too much work to be done here. But this is global in nature. We bought the rights for this globally. That's important because everybody else is going to have to do the same thing we're doing if we're really going to do this transition. It has to happen everywhere.
Let's talk about a couple of things here real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit it.
I want to narrow this down because I don't want to get people lost. But the end result through your process, well, the graphene thing was kind of new because I don't think we talked about that.
Yeah, that's a little surprise.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. Because I have done a lot in that. I know a lot about the graphene.
We can go offline. I'm happy, and I'll send you all.
Could probably talk for 2 months straight. But the end result is what can you then supply per kilogram hydrogen to the end user for?
At the ACT, at the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo in Las Vegas, our booth was the focal point of our booth was a little stand we had up front. And on this stand, on all 4 sides, we had a price per kilogram of $4.75 a kilogram.
Now,
and
didn't you just say $36 or so?
Yes, sir, in California.
Okay.
That's the problem is they're not producing it on location.
Yeah, but $4.75 is what you had up. And that's what I think you had somebody that had asked you something to the effect of, I don't know.
How can you produce it for $4.75?
And you said
that's not what we produce it for. That's what we're selling it for. and we actually had people, and we're these are ongoing conversations. You have to be able to substantiate what you say, right? So we brought in a couple of guys to see our a little facility that does electricity here, where you can get the basic premise of the chemistry. You can understand the chemistry of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I said, don't bring your damn, your chief financial officer to this meeting. Bring an engineer, a chemical engineer preferably, so that you can understand the process. Because once you get somebody who understands the process, it all becomes clear to you. So we continued that conversation, but we actually had people stop and get run over. That damn show was unbelievable. But
why
stop and look at that number.
Chris, why is this important? Because you can see
Well,
that you're selling it at that price
yep,
and you're not relying upon any subsidies
no,
to be what we would call cash flow positive or even profitable.
that's the hook. That's the beauty of our business model, and that's how I don't know how to do anything else. I don't know why you would ever try to set up a business that wouldn't cash flow. I conceptually, to me, I mean,
Now they're going to look at, I'm going to tell you right now, because I looked at when I saw the price, the terms of the deal to acquire the technology. I'm not going to lie. I saw that and I said, holy shit, that's a big number, right? But
well,
when
you
you,
got to you got the first thing that you have to do when you do this from you have to look at the market perspective, right? So I told you early in the call that today in the world there's about 106 million tons, 106 million metric tons of hydrogen produced today. You multiply that by 1,000, that's the number of kilograms that are deployed every day. And if we're really going to do this transition and you're going to go from 106 million tons of hydrogen, gray hydrogen to green hydrogen, somebody's got to be out there doing it. What do you think the chances are of a refinery or anybody in an industrial application, ammonia plant, fertilizer plant? Do you think that they can turn around and displace hydrogen that they're paying $6, $7 a kilogram for now with hydrogen at $36 a kilogram? There's no chance. It's not economic, it's not realistic, and it will never, ever happen. And anybody that thinks you can force it to happen is living in an existence that is not reality. One of the industries that we've been working on early on, we saw an opportunity was in steel making. There's a process called the dry process where they use hydrogen um, to essentially carbonize the pig iron and turn it into steel. It makes sense. It's one of the few big industrial applications that makes sense. It does not make sense when you start talking about putting gigawatt size electrolysis units in place because somebody's got to produce the electricity to run that damn electrolyzer. And I don't know about you, but even here where I live in East Tennessee, we've got TVA. Our utility rates have gone up. In 6 years, our utility rates almost doubled. We're at 12.9 cents a
we
kilowatt hour,
doubled? Really?
almost double.
Here in Vegas? I've
I'm afraid
experienced,
I'm afraid to hear this.
it's beautiful, man. I've experienced a triple.
Well, see, that's and I've got family in Germany. I've got friends in the UK, and in Germany, my family's paying 46 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. The government sent them a check, $1,500 back in June, to offset the increase in their utility cost. Utility cost is about 160,000 a month. They got a whole $1,500 to offset that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Electricity prices are not coming backwards; they're going up. Our grid is a damn antique. It's literally 70 years old. It needs help. You cannot burden the grid any further by electric. This movement out right now is electrify everything. It is a virtual impossibility. This is not high level science. This is simple arithmetic. It's not even mathematics. It's arithmetic.
This is common sense.
But how the hell do we keep having these conversations? You've got smart people who
Here's the thing.
are pushing this stuff.
We don't want to go too far off the rails, but I can say
No, I'm with you.
we
But
we
that's the hook. That's the hook. Electricity prices are going up. So my competitors are dependent on those electricity prices to make their hydrogen.
right.
So if they're having to pay in Germany 46 cents a kilowatt hour, It takes 50, the most efficient system I'm aware of that's been deployed today, they need 54 kilowatt hours of electricity. I've got one guy telling me they can do it with 52. He's not sent me anything documenting that, but I have seen the numbers on the 54. So if you do 54 kilowatt hours of electricity to make a kilogram of hydrogen, you multiply that times 46 cents a kilowatt hour, that ain't $4.75. You can't sell it for $4.75 and make money. You can't get a subsidy to make it make money. So how do you fix that? And the idea was, it's called curtailment. That these guys, the storyline is that in Europe, there's a lot of these communities that are running on 100% renewable energy. Math's all fuzzy. It makes no sense. It's not true. There's not a scintilla of evidence to say that. So we don't think we have a competitor today in our space that's anywhere near what we can produce it for. We don't think we have anybody in our space who has a system that is so robust that it generates its own electricity. We don't think we have anybody in our space who understands the mechanics of this transition, because my guys, most of my guys are oil and gas guys. And in our last call, we had this discussion. It's very difficult to conceptualize what we're talking about on a high level of a transition from natural gas or diesel or gasoline to hydrogen. It's an ordinary person. The numbers that we're talking about for diesel just in the US are beyond the comprehension. I can't comprehend it. I'm not the brightest tool in the, sharpest tool in the bag, but I can tell you those numbers are unreal. You can't put them on a spreadsheet. They're so big. It's just silly how big these numbers are. That's just diesel. You put gasoline and natural gas in that mix, and you say we're going to do that in 10 or 20 years,
It's not
it
possible.
ain't happening. It's
It's
not
not.
realistic. And that's why we see the opportunity is so huge. That's why it was so important for us to get this technology.
So Chris,
And yeah,
when will this be up and running? When will the
our target for Red Bluff, once again, just permitting and engineering is a challenge. We're working through that daily. We got get people that we're working with to facilitate that. I don't honestly believe we'll be online in California before the first.
No, I'm not talking about California. I'm talking about
Florida, we're hoping, we had a small setback with a partner down there, who we're working through that right now. We think we've got a solution, but we think in 6 months from, maybe, this month, 6 months now, March, April of next year, we'll have a demonstration facility up. That's the goal. And that's complete deployment of our hydrogen technology, the Hyliion gensets to operate that technology, to make the power to do it, and our PSAs to make the hydrogen. And our business model is we're going to take that to the Port of Tampa. And we're 2 miles from the port at our location. And we've already got a partner in the shipping space to take our hydrogen and distribute it. Once again, it's a demonstration facility, so it's only going to be 3 or 4 tons of hydrogen a day. It's not a large, industrial type application. Red Bluff is 12 tons a day. That's 1/3 of where we started, because the market's still got to catch up with us. But where I was about to say, you asked me another poignant question a minute ago, is, that's a big number. How the hell are you going to do that? Well, one of our more recent announcements this past week was that we partnered with the McCarville Capital Group to help us with our capital raise. And it's not just for the acquisition of the technology, it's to help us fund projects as we move forward, so that we're not dependent on DOE, USDA, any of those guys to fund our projects. These guys have spent the last couple of years. I've been talking with them for 5 years, and we finally got them to the table because I think the realization is that the hydrogen market is actually here and it's not going away. And they want to be part of that. And we're very happy that they decided to, bring us on board as a client. It's a really big deal for me. I've been trying to get Jim McCarville and his team to work with us as a company for, more than 5
What
years.
attracted you to them? Why them?
They've got a very holistic approach to capital. Their underlying idea is they don't want to raise capital for a project that's not going to make economic sense. And how the hell that is not the idea behind all of these guys is mind blowing to me. But they'll go out and raise money for projects that they know are never going to make money. That's not Jim's business model. He's got and they're previously in their existence, their primary function has been raising money for hedge funds or family offices, to help these guys that are mission oriented in a very specific space. And I think you have to have that focus. I don't think it can be a traditional, investment bank that does everything for everybody. Jim and his team are hyper focused. It's McCarville Capital Partners, and
So they're not gonna come to, I would assume. They're gonna look for high quality investment type minded.
well, and also they're bringing the people that they funded over the last decade or 2 decades, because they've got a hell of a team of guys. They're also bringing those relationships to the table with us, and they've got relationships with monsters. I mean, guys that I've been trying to get return phone calls for months. And, Jim literally sent an email to one of the guys, and the guy called me back in 15 minutes. And I've sent him 100 emails. I mean, I'm ashamed. He said, well, who have you been sending your emails to? And I said, I'd really just soon not tell you. That it's quite embarrassing. And he said, well, go ahead and tell me. And I listed the 13 people that I've sent 10 or 12 emails to. And he said, well, what are they saying? And I said, they've never responded. And, that is representative of the issue that we face in the market because this is still new. But having somebody with a track record like the McCarville Capital Group has, and the staff that he has, and to get them to understand our value proposition was monumental for us. So this year we've got the technology, right? We've got it under contract to buy it. We started paying for it already. You can look at the terms if you've not. It's on our on the Edgar website. You can see the actual agreement that we've entered into. It's $100 million. We're essentially paying about 24.5 million over 5 years. During that time, we control it completely. At the end of the 5th year, we convert. We either pay it out. Hopefully, it won't take us 5 years. We'll get it paid out sooner. If Dr. Weaver were to see this, that's my goal, Dr. Weaver, is to get you paid out as soon as possible. We need him focused on taking this graphene thing to the next level. But that's what McCarville does for us. And it allows us to have conversations at a higher level with larger organizations who we really need. In order to really do this industrial transition, you have to have an industrial customer, one industrial customer at the table with you.
Yep.
And once they sign off on it and you do a deal with them, it's Katie bar the door. And that's where we see the opportunity. We're out doing, I'll send you an updated deck. This one you've got doesn't have we shortened it a little bit and put an ask in it. But what we're doing right now out in the market is we're bringing near term, a $9 million near term raise. That's going to allow us to uplist, get on, a more substantial exchange like QB or QX, and then ultimately with the focus on going to NASDAQ. That's kind of where we
Which, by the
target.
way, I don't know if you're aware, but recently it's had some SEC has made some changes in
Oh yeah.
small caps. They're making it much more difficult for
Oh, it's exponentially more difficult than where we started. This process started in May of 23.
yeah.
That's when we started the merger. So
Brilliance after we've been in about a 38-month week cycle within the small cap, micro cap space, we've decided that we're going to make it even more challenging.
well, and that's not unique to the United States. So, let's be clear, Canada, all the EU, Australia, they've all made it much more difficult at a time when you think you would want to bring everything to bear and try to get all the best ideas out.
Innovation, right?
And that's what it feels like.
For some reason, we just continue to make starting a business taking
More difficult.
more.
Well, once again, if you want the highest degree of difficulty, go start a business in California. That's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing now.
Hopefully, this is what I'm here for, and it's I want to try and wake people up to the power that they can have by. I mean, you can't. Maybe you're not a big investor, but you can.
Well, you told me something. You told me something earlier, and you actually said it in our last call too, about what you'd kind of identified as your mission, and that really, it's important that people understand. The idea here is to kind of bring wisdom to people, or a knowledge base to people that wouldn't actually have access to the same information that the titans in the market have. We don't have a competitive hope against the big guys in the commercial banking space. The way they trade, buy and sell, we can't even, it's beyond our comprehension. And unfortunately, they drive a lot of the decisions that are made. And if it's not beneficial to them, then why would it be beneficial to us? Well, your idea is to make these small caps, micro caps, which is where all the growth is right now. No matter, I don't care what anybody says, that's a reality of the situation. But to give people exposure to new ideas and to let them make a damn decision by themselves and not be dependent on their broker who's churning their accounts and just destroying any return they hope that they have for a return. That's the reality of the situation. And what you're doing is really important in giving small companies like my company and some of the others that you've introduced me to, a place to go out and kind of tell the story and have something that people can actually go back to and use as a reference. Well, this guy did this podcast in May or June of last year or this year, and let's look at that and see where they're at today and see if they've actually made any damn progress. And I think if you look at what we said with you in our initial podcast, where we're at today, we've made monumental progress. And we will, as a company, continue to do just that. And I won't let anything stop that from happening. I mean, as long as I'm here, we will make that progress. And that's just my promise to our partners, to my team, to our investors, to anybody that's considering using our technology. We are driven by change and by economics. And, if you really want to have an impact, that's how you do it. But we have to have people like you. And I've done a couple of others over the last couple of months where I've been able to give some of my unpopular opinions uh, to some guys in our space. Don't always make the cut. You don't always get to see the podcast because if you're too contrarian, they don't want to alienate their audience. So you might not get to see a lot of the stuff. But I participated in a bunch of white papers over the last 6 months, and got to get input into things that are important to the market. And I don't think if you don't have some contrarian opinions, that you get the full weight of what we're trying to accomplish. And I will never be an also ran. I'm always, you call and ask me, I'm going to tell you. And it may not be what you want to hear, but that's not my job. My job is to give you the best solution. I told you about this OEM we're working with, and we're not going to do a deal just to get a deal done. It's got to be a deal that's good for them and good for us and is long lived. I don't want a 1 or a 5 year deal. I want to be 20 or 30 years, and I want them to use us everywhere. They're a global company. I want them to use us everywhere. And I do a short sighted deal to get a little spring in the company stock. That's just stupid. And we won't ever do that as a company.
Chris, you and I could, like I said, we could talk for 2 months straight.
And I'm happy to do the graphene thing with you anytime you want to.
Right. I want people to understand what this company is working towards, and the magnitude of the impact that could have. Having a positive impact, you can become a brand ambassador. You can be a positive impact person. You don't have to be an impact investor that's tied to ESG. We
Right.
just be impact people.
Right.
By helping company, you help a little company become a big company. How many lives get impacted from that? Right? How many lives positively get impacted from that?
That's what the whole idea of the United States is, right? That's what the whole idea of the United States was, is that you're making a difference. And that's part and parcel to what we are. And we don't want to just do it locally. We want to do it everywhere. I want to be able to make this transition.
This is a global thing. This is not just a US thing.
Exactly.
Right? But
Yep.
you're gonna do this measured, you're gonna do it right. But you have look, if anybody's listened to this, if you think Chris doesn't know what he's talking about, you're not paying attention. He's done his homework, right?
I
And he
appreciate
isn't
that.
looking to do this to lose money. He's looking to
Yeah.
do this so that they are making money.
Well, and I want my investors, I want my partners. That's what I'm saying. We want everybody to be economically beneficial or economically benefited by a partnership with us. And that partnership means you're a partner, whether you know it or not. Our, McCarville Capital coming on, they're a partner now. So anybody that takes the time to invest in us, whether it be the time that you give us for this, platform, or the time that the McCarville Capital Group took to look at us, to do their diligence on us. Our potential partners that we've been meeting, out in the market, partially because of you, but just in general, outreach. And we want to be sure that everybody benefits from a relationship with our company and our team. And it's not easy. This is a nascent industry still. There's a lot of heavy lifting still to be done. But as I said, look at the progress. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Go back and look at what we've done over the last 5, 6 months. And then in 6 more months, look and see where we are.
Well, we're going to do that because I'm going to
have when that facility comes on, that's where the game changer happens. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the conversation now and before. And I look forward to our next call, and I'll keep you apprised of any updates that are coming, so that if there's something that you see, because you see things I don't see, and we've discussed that too. I'm always appreciative of any outside inputs that help me make the right decisions for the company.
All right, Chris. Listen, we will revisit this soon. Maybe we won't make it so long.
Yeah, no worries. Well, it has been wild. We have been
Man,
wide open.
guys, man, there's a lot of
It
stuff
does.
going on. You know what? There's you. There's a lot of company. The beautiful thing is humanity has a lot of problems. We really do. We have a lot of problems.
Which means there's a lot of opportunity for solutions.
And I'm not smart enough to figure out all those things. But what I'm really good at doing is finding the people that are passionate, that are smart in their wheelhouse, that can solve some of our problems, which will benefit everyone, right?
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to participate, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And hopefully I will you'll see it somewhere down the road where somebody you've introduced us to, and or an investor that comes on board reaches back out and tells you, hey, I didn't know about this, but we appreciated it, and I appreciate it. So thank you for what you're doing, and anything I can do to help you, you let us know.
All right, Chris. All right, man. I look forward to catching up with you next. If you're not following VYEY, you need to go to their website and go to their investor relations, sign up for their email alerts. And that way, I mean, I'm not telling you to go buy the stock. You don't have to go put everything on black. Just start paying attention to what's happening with the company. Right?
And if you got questions, send us an email. We'll get back to you.
Absolutely. All right, Chris.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, hold on a second. I'm going to shut this off.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to another interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we had Chairman Chris Headrick with Victory Clean Energy. Ticker symbol VYEY. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? Make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.